Hi, everyone. This is the SEBA call for Tuesday, December 18th. What we have on the agenda today is the SEBA 1.0 release and demo. And I believe Saurav is going to be giving that. Let me transfer presentation rights to the large conference room or to your connection, Saurav.
Actually, your
We're going to start with the QA part of the demo.
Okay.
So if you can transfer it to Yo Wang.
Okay. Alrighty, it's been transferred. There we go.
Okay, so hope everybody can see the screen. Today we wanted to just show that what QA has achieved as part of SEBA release. And here on your screen, you can see the SEBA test plan which was put together for September and December release. And this has been reviewed and put together by QA and development together. And we got some comments from external people as well. And this is still available on the wiki web pages if anybody wants to look at it. And from this test plan, we have translated them to various test cases, and that could be found here, which is in under system tests on the wiki page. SEBA test, we have December release. So all the tests starting from September have been put together here. And mostly the high priority test cases, test requirements as part of the test plan have been taken out, and then we translated them to this test, and the tests were developed. And from this list here, it also shows that what tests have been developed as part of CORD and what are the tests that run on SEBA in a box platform as well. So here, and there are a couple items here. Most of the functional items which are working with ONU whitelist items have been covered, most of the important functions. And we just started with data plane failure scenarios, and that is still in progress, and that will still continue as part of even after December release. And there have been some medium priority test cases as well. Some of them have been covered, and yet there are others that still need to be covered, and which we will continue as part of January, going through January. So given that, and these test case IDs shown here would reflect the actual test cases that we have developed as part of CORD tester. So whenever you download the CORD tester framework, and you can run you can relate to a particular test case with the test case ID here. So now we'll show you the actual test, how we are integrated as part of Jenkins on CORD and SIAB.
Okay, so I'm going to show you the Jenkins jobs that we created for running the tests for SEBA. As Sutrisha already talked about, we have implemented 10 test cases that have the highest priority, and we created this job to run nightly after we build the SEBA pod, and then we run this job. So it will download the pod configurations. Oh, okay. So,
Can someone mute? Yeah. Okay.
So this job, it will download the pod configs, helm charts, and pod tester repo, and configure the tests, and then run the tests and publish the results. It takes about 50 minutes to run all the test cases, and all test cases are now passing. If you check this test result summary, it's 100% passing. And you can also go to the robot results page and check the history and also the detailed logs to, if anything fails, you can easily find it, the detailed logging. And since all the tests are passing at this point, it will be easy for us to track new issues that happen in the future. So besides this job, this is for running the tests on the physical part. We also try to run the same set of tests on SEBA in the box. Kailash, can you can use my laptop.
Yeah, so we also have run the same test scenarios on SEBA in a box environment, which runs through these same test conditions. But of course, SEBA in a box uses a virtual OLT using PONSIM. And so we do see, occasionally we see failures like authentication or DHCP failures in this environment. But the purpose for this test, well, the way we determine stability on SEBA in a box is if we get 80–90% pass rate, because most of the times when we see these occasional failures, it's when authentication fails through the RG and things like that, and they're random failures. So, you know, it's easy for us to determine if SEBA in a box is stable or not. And so this job we actually have running, since it's just running on a VM. Then it runs every couple hours, so it's easy for us to track any issues in this environment as well too. So yeah, we run through the same test scenarios in this environment that we have running on the physical pod with the physical ONU and OLT. And as Suchita mentioned, we have future plans of integrating both of these environments using BBSIM as well too, so we can get some level of scale testing going in a CI cycle.
I think that's all for the Q&A.
Yeah, that's all from QA
Okay,
side. So if
thank
there are
you. Yeah, any questions on the QA side of things from the audience?
Yeah,
I'm assuming
is
all
there a
of
way?
this
Sorry,
I'm assuming all this is checked in, right? So folks who wanted to reproduce their own test setups could do this?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. Yeah, there was a question in the Volta call this morning about there was another group putting together some test scenarios and about installing ONOs, for example, and trying to guide them towards everyone more or less installing the same thing would be good. And if something like this is already out there, then it might be helpful.
Yes, definitely. And then these are some of the tests, even the certification brigade is also going to use. So these are like kind of end user tests that could be after all the chats on a pod. We have the repo that could be downloaded, and they are like passing by changing some of the attributes in the files. These tests can be run seamlessly on any pod.
Yeah, I would like to also add, I would recommend people to look at the Jenkins file that we have on the CORD tester repo. We have the Jenkins file for the build steps as well as the test steps. So you can identify, the steps we're taking and, bringing up our test environment and then executing the test. Yeah, if you guys haven't taken a look at that yet.
Yeah, and one more thing to add is we also updated the guide, OpenCOD guide on the guide for SEBA. So it also gives you an example like how to download, how to set up the CORD tester, and also how to run a specific test case. So there are some examples there. So please, we would encourage you to go there, and then if you have any questions,
I'm going to go through the documentation next. Okay. So any other questions from the audience for the QA?
Yeah. Yes. Is there a way to shorten the execution of the test duration? It seems that it's taking 50 minutes. So if we have more tests, then probably it would take more time.
Yes, currently we have combined all the test scenarios into one, so that's the reason it takes a longer time. But if you want to run a specific scenario, as an example, in this in this page here, if you just wanted to execute only test ONU with the correct location, let's say the correct location, then you can just pull out this particular scenario from that particular test case, and then that could be run individually as well. So that would just take you like 3 minutes to 4 minutes.
So is the test setup takes the more time?
No,
or the execution?
The execution takes time because we are waiting for these events to get back from SEBA as well, because we are waiting for the authentication, we are waiting for the DHCP, and then again we are waiting for the pings and that to be successful. So, you know, the validation itself takes time, and we are waiting for these events to also come back.
Yeah, and every time we clean up the system, and we'll also wait for OAuth to reboot and open OAuth to come up, and that happens in every test cases, so that takes a long time.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Can these test cases be categorized into like active testing and passive monitoring, where you leave the test in the production all the time and you're passively monitoring certain failures and stuff?
Yes, that is the future plan. We don't have them yet, but for the next release, we are planning to have the SOAP testing. So some of the functional tests will be used by enhancing more monitoring scenarios as well. So, yeah.
So we can leave those always in the production?
Yes.
Yeah, SOAP testing is different from functional testing, but no, we haven't had the SOAP tests yet. I think the AT&T Foundry has done some SOAP testing, but we're lacking some infrastructure right now to do that long-term testing, but we're working on it. Yeah, that's also a future goal. Yes. Okay. If there is no other questions, I'd like to spend some time. Zach, if you could make me the presenter, I'd like to give people an overview of the documentation that we are just working on right now. So we've started on the documentation. We have the structure in place. A lot of the pages are actually empty right now, but I want to give an overview to folks to where to find things. We will be filling up the guide over the rest of the week and going forward. So when you first get to the CORD guide, you will see that on the left-hand side, there is a drop-down menu. Right now it says master, but this will eventually become 6.1, which is what we are releasing. 6.0 was the last version that we had done in the summer. So 6.1 is a minor release of the platform. So the first place you can go to is overview, and that'll tell you that this guide has now transformed from its previous version. This guide now has a set of what we call guides and then references, right? So and it'll walk you through the installation steps, the operations. If you're a developer, then what you want to do as a developer, what you want to do as a for testing, okay? And then if you go to this section, this is how we look at, say, CORD right now, right? There is the CORD platform. It includes ONOS and XOS and Kafka and logging and monitoring infrastructure. And on this platform, you can load a profile. So SEBA, which is what we're releasing, is a profile that runs on the CORD platform, right? It comes with a collection of ONOS applications, Volta, for example, that controls the access device, access network, and a bunch of XOS services. And on this SEBA profile, you could have multiple operator workflows, right? So, of course, in deployment, you're going to use one operator's workflow. So the one workflow that we have right now, as you know, is the AT&T workflow, and hopefully more from Truck Telecom in the near future. So, yeah, question.
Is this profile basically going to map into Acrano eventually? You have a SEBA Acrano platform?
No, so what happens is, what will happen is that this, the platform itself will be launched on top of Acrano, right? So what you don't see over here in the platform is that we're not saying that the servers should have a particular operating system. What we're not saying is that you need to use Kubernetes that we are launched. You know, there's no Kubernetes over here, right? So the operating system that runs on the servers, Kubernetes, that can now come from Acrano, right? That's the Acrano blueprint on top. The blueprint is then going to include this software that we then launch using Helm charts on top of the Kubernetes version that comes from Acrano. Yeah, that's right. This is the software that we need for this pod to run, but it can run on top of any other infrastructure software, like the operating system, the servers, or Kubernetes. Right? Okay, so when you go through this, you'll find that there is an installation guide that will walk you through some prerequisites, and then it'll tell you, okay, this is how you install the platform. We're going to show, this one actually says there are individual Helm charts, but what Luca will show you next is that we have a macro Helm chart that will essentially launch the entire platform. And on top of that, you say once the platform is installed, you're ready to bring up one of the available profiles, right? Now, it's also true that if you look at the installation guide, you can also see that if you don't, this installation requires management network connectivity, but if you don't have that, or say you're behind a restrictive firewall, you can also consider offline install, okay? Which is something we won't be demonstrating today, but it's part of the release, okay? Another option is that if you don't have the hardware that is needed for running the pod, you can run a system that is completely emulated, and that's what we call SEBA in a box. Okay, so that's another choice that you have, or a part of the platform through the quick start guide. Okay, so these are all your options. So once you install the platform and you go towards installing the profile, you can go to one of the available profiles, and that brings you to the profile reference. So what we have is the SEBA profile, and you can go through the installation steps for SEBA, and then the configuration steps. There's two specific kinds of configuration: a pod-specific configuration that is generic, and then a workflow-specific configuration. For example, that will bring up, the AT&T workflow, right? And then there is a set of how do you operate. Once you have installed and configured this pod, how do you operate this pod? There are some guidelines over here. Most of these are empty right now, and we'll be filling that up. Some known issues with this particular release, and some frequently asked questions like, I can't get my pings through, I can't discover, I can't authenticate, DHCP is not working, and so on, right? So we will be populating these, and now, this particular version does say mCORD, but as you know, that mCORD is actually not part of the 6.1 release, because we do have, it's under maintenance with some licensing issues. So that you must. So the only profile that we'll actually be releasing as part of 6.1 is the SEBA profile, right? And then you have a service reference for all the services that we launch in XOS, and a Helm chart reference for all the Helm charts that we use, okay? So that's all I wanted to really talk about, what you can expect as part of this release in terms of documentation. And now I'm going to hand it over to Luca. So question, sorry.
So for the upgrading to new release, would there be another set of rules or procedures of how to without disrupting the existing customers?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question though. Could you repeat that?
Can you repeat the question?
So the question is for basically CI/CD model, right? When you are going to make a new release, for example, how do we make sure that you're slowly transferring the existing customers to the new release, or backtracking models that we might have to do? This is more of an operational thing. How do you automate the release control?
Yeah, well, for that you have external standard tools that comes together with Kubernetes, such as CleanUp, for example. Anyway, this needs to be supported in the charts and in the software itself. For example, your infrastructure should be immutable, meaning basically that your container should be stateless. We are not yet at that point, but this is for sure one of the next steps moving forward. So it won't be possible as now to do a seamless in-service upgrade of the infrastructure from a release to the other, but it's definitely in the roadmap for the future.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, just can I ask a question?
Sure.
So in the SEBA exemplar, there's a basic definition of a SEBA pod with a certain set of OLTs and a switch, etc. So is that going to be replaced by an Acrano blueprint? Is that the plan?
No, the SEBA pod in itself will be part of the blueprint, right? So there are parts of Akraino that are not mandated by the SEBA pod. That stuff will come from Akraino, but what I'd shown in the initial picture, and let me share that again 1 second. What I had shown in the picture over here, right? You will still need the platform software that you see down here to run the SEBA pod, right? You're still going to need the profile software. You still going to need the workflow, okay? The whole this layering on this goes on top of Akraino's provided software. Does that make sense? Like, you know, Ubuntu and the version of Ubuntu that is used, or the version of Kubernetes that is used, that stuff comes from Akraino.
Right.
Right. And then on top of that, we launch the platform software, the profile software, and the workflow.
Right, but Akraino also has platform like Unicycle and all the different scaling parts of Akraino, right? So a number of servers, etc. Right. That seems. I mean, that's kind of an overlap with what the SEBA pod is, right? So, does that come from?
No. So, Sean, if you look in this diagram to the right, we also talk about a bill of materials, and some of the other things, like, for example, Volta isn't useful unless you have OLTs and that sort of stuff. I think the goal is with Akraino to have a SEBA compatible profile, or Akraino profile that would include all of the software components, a bill of material that is suitable for running like a SEBA release, and that would all layer on top of Akraino. And there might be various ONF supported Akraino profiles that have their own hardware BOM and set of software. Does that clarify?
Yeah. Okay.
Is that the question? Is the Akraino SEBA blueprint ready? And if it is, should we test with it as well?
So I think some of the Akraino questions are a little bit premature because we're having these discussions right now, and the Akraino team itself, the Akraino TST, they are also having discussions. Last I heard, which was just yesterday, really, was that they did approve the blueprint, but I don't have any details. So the discussions with the Akraino team that we have is basically they ask us things like, okay, how many servers does a SEBA pod need, right? What's the minimum? But also, what's the maximum? For example, if a SEBA pod has to scale to 16 OLTs with 16 PON ports in each and 64 subscribers per PON port, right? That's the maximum scale of a SEBA pod. Then how many servers do you need? And I say that, well, we haven't gone through that exercise yet because we are still building the tools to test that kind of scale, and we'll show you a demo of that tool today. So some of the questions are a little premature, and these discussions are ongoing. But yes, as we learn more,
I just want to make sure.
Sure, yeah. Learn more, we'll talk about it, right?
So may I update something about this Akraino things?
Sure.
Yes, we did a face-to-face meeting with Akraino guys, and we planned, I mean, the next release of the Akraino, the first release of the Akraino. So it will be at the end of April, and it will contain the SEBA blueprint too. So they collected the requirement you said about the hardware you are using, etc., for preparing the blueprint. Now, after the January, the second part of the January, they will start to implement the integrations. So they will need some extra information from you about your Helm charts, your installation script, etc.
Hi, this is Tina Jo. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Hi, I'm also the co-chair of Akraino TSC. If you have any warm-up discussion, we can have it now, or I'm ready. Any instant questions you want to ask, or what's the main concern or the blockers? Nothing.
I don't
Everything's
think,
well.
I don't think it's
Yeah.
blocked. I think people are just looking for information and where
I
this,
see.
where this is headed.
Okay, so last week, December 7, 6 to 7, Equino has the TSC face-to-face meeting held by Ericsson in their campus in Santa Clara. So 21 the blueprint belonging to 8 families were approved. So and the release one target that, as you said, it's end of April, and starting from the 3rd week of January, we can start the unit testing or development for those projects. So, and we have the community lab, and we also have the which is called Blueprint Validation Lab. For the community lab, everything will be settled down by end of March. But before that, all the blueprint leaders and committers are welcome to encourage you to use your own machines, like the blueprint family, the blueprint validation lab to do all the development work. So you can even start now, and because only the 3rd of January is because of the holiday seasons, and then we can nominate, we can have a PTL for each blueprint. And I think everything is on track, and it's just because the holiday season for 2 weeks a little bit slowed down. Any questions? Feel free to ask.
And then is this all x86 based assumption with the Equino, or are we also supporting ARM-based servers and so on?
It's a 50-50. Both support the Equino, both x86 based and ARM based. If I may, I can share you Excel table, which is all the blueprint, what kind of machines that they're going to use.
You could just email it to them, right? I mean, we'd
like to move on with the other parts of the demo.
Sure, I can send you the link on the chat box.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, so now we'd like to hand over to Luca, who will show you some of these installation steps.
Yeah, can you make me presenter?
Zach, can you make Luca presenter, please?
Done.
Yeah, he just did it.
Thank you.
Keep going. I think we can see your screen.
I don't need to control it, so you can just keep going, Luca.
All right, can you guys see the slides, right?
Yes.
Okay, so hi everyone. Very quickly, we wanted to show you the new installation for the CORD platform and SEBA, the profile, right, and the related workflow. Just want to reinforce what Saurav mentioned before, right? So to be clear, what you guys see here is just Helm charts, okay? It's just collection of containers. Here, there's no really, we keep not prescribing a specific hardware on the compute, or a version of operating system you should run, or a version of Kubernetes you should run, okay? Kubernetes is the basic abstraction layer, and you'll find everything in the software requirements section that sort of was showing you before on the guide, okay? So once you have your favorite version of the operating system and Kubernetes installed, here is where our software comes in, and you can start to install the platform, okay? It will be distributed as a unique Helm chart, as we're going to see. On top of that, you deploy the profile, and on top of that, you deploy the workflow. As a general idea, you can really imagine it like I have an operating system. On top of it, I install a specific application. On top of this application, I deploy a specific configuration to use it for my particular environment and scenario, okay? What this means concretely? Concretely, this means that what I'm going to show you concretely. We have 3 macro charts, okay, that we are going to install. Of course, you always have the choice as a user if to install charts separately, so these charts separately as before, to keep a more fine-grained control over the installation, or as a user to install these as a whole, divided in 3 macro sections, okay? The operating system, so core platform, the application, in this case, SEBA, and on top of it, your workflow, which is going to be the AT&T workflow, okay? Other news, this was, well, it's not really news because it was already existing before, but we will reinforce in many sections of the guide to will encourage users more and more to use the helm chart online repository to deploy CORD and SEBA instead of cloning the helm chart repository. This is another feedback we got from deployments from the community. You know, if you're not a developer, there's really no reason why you should clone a repository and start to deal with code, right? So imagine this, to make a very easy example, imagine this really like APT on Ubuntu, right? It's a package manager helm, right? So what you do in Ubuntu is if the repository containing your software is not a default repository coming with Ubuntu, what you do is you add the repository, and then you do apt-get update, and then you install the software doing apt-get install the software that you want that is contained in that repository, right? Same thing happens in this case. You'll see it in a second. First, I just want to show you concretely what this means, okay? So if you go to chartsopencore.org, you see that there's a list of targz files, okay? Plus an index file, which basically keep track of all the files published inside there, okay? It's a manifest. And of course, Helm commands know how to interpret all this, okay? Every time we publish a new Helm chart, we have a job that automatically publishes the targz in the right format, update the index, and so makes it ready for users to consume. Now, what does it mean at this point installing the platform? As I said, it's very similar to an APT installation on Ubuntu, okay? So first command, you add the CORD repository, Helm repository to the list of your local repositories. You just run an update, and then you have 3 commands, each one for a different version of SEBA. Now, don't take a look at the versions. I know it looks confusing now, and I know because many people ask me already that you're going to ask why the version, for example, of the core platform, I see 101 instead of if the version of core platform is going to be 6.1. We will eventually adjust it. This is something that comes from Helm. But again, let's don't focus on that, okay? Let's try to run these commands concretely, and we'll show you what happens. So what I'm going to do is to copy and paste simply these commands on an empty Kubernetes cluster I have. I can show you it's empty. If I do helm ls, I don't have anything installed on it, okay? So first thing, I add the CORD repository to my local repositories, okay? It tells me, great, your CORD repository has been added. Indeed, if I do helm repo list, you can see that besides my default repositories, now I have an additional one, the one pointing to the CORD charts, okay? Second command, I update the dependencies. This basically says to my local system to go through the index file, parse it, and understand what's inside that repository, okay? This is happening, of course, not just for the CORD repositories, but for all the repositories that I have in the system that you see above. And finally, we are ready to install our system, okay? So I start with the CORD platform. First command. And it tells me I'm installing a bunch of containers on your system. It gives me a nice summary. Okay. I install SEBA on top of it. Okay. I guess it's pretty self-explanatory, but you guys can understand. Let me clean the screen for you. You guys can understand what this means, right? Helm install. So install something called, I give it a local name and I call it SEBA. From the repository CORD, get the chart called SEBA and install the version 100. And SEBA is going to be installed. Last but not least, the AT&T workflow. The syntax is always the same. Okay, I'll install AT&T workflow. And this is all a set of repository. Now, I just want to show you that, first of all, now we have our 3 softwares deployed. Okay, you see here the app version. You have a Core Platform 6.1.0. You have a SEBA 1.0, and likely this will be an AT&T workflow 1.0. But whatever, the software is installed, right? Also, this corresponds to a large set of containers that I can show you.
Cool.
Oh, sorry, wrong. QCTL. Okay. Now, I don't want to stay here too long. Theo is going to show you, in the interest of time, a system already provisioned. Okay. As you see, some pods are still initializing. Some others are already running. There's also the Volta part. So Volta, for example, is already running as well after a few seconds. Okay. First time may take some minutes more, but it doesn't take any long. So as you can see, this is not like a special demo. I didn't hack the system, right? This is how easy it is to install for everybody the system since Kubernetes is installed. Nothing more than this is needed. Okay. And now I hand over to Matteo, which is going to show you what we can do with a running system. Matteo, I make you presenter, if yes, I can, from here.
Closer to the mic.
I made you presenter, Matteo.
Cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm currently moving closer to the mic, so it's easier for people to...
Yeah, for the second step in the meetup, if anybody has any question, please let me know.
Okay, so I think everyone is seeing my screen. So as sort of said, we are going to demonstrate the work we have done with BDSIM to test the system scale. Thanks to Keita and NTT for putting a lot of work in it. But so to resume from where Luca left, we have a system that is installed with what we can call the RC version of the new release. So
sorry, Matteo, just maybe you were not going to mention that it's clear. I show you just 3 components. Here you see 5. One is clear, and the other is the Docker register, right?
Yeah. So as Luca was saying, we see a few more charts here. One is BDSIM, the simulator for scalability, and this is a development pod. So we have a Docker registry to test development images that are not published yet, but it doesn't change anything. So as now in the system, we have one OLT that has 5 venues connected to it. They are all valid. I just went ahead and authenticated one of them and gave it an IP. I'm now going to bring up a new emulated OLT using BDSIM with 16 venues connected to one PON core. So I'm going just to send this Tosca file. We'll take a look at this file in a second, but it's the usual whitelist and subscriber and OLT information. So I'm sending it. The system will bring up a new OLT. This one will activate very quickly. We can go check in Volta meanwhile and see what's happening with the devices there. Let me make this a little smaller. We can see that we brought up this new LT device. It's actually running on a container on top of Kubernetes. But the important thing to note is that it's using the same OLT adapter at the Xcore device. The same way, the ONUs are using the same OpenMCI adapter. And you can see in the system that the ONUs started to come up.
So the ONUs have serial numbers BBSM00 and yeah, I see.
Four of them already came up. If we look at the devices in Volta, some of them are active, some of them are still being discovered, but we see that they are coming up. And BBSIM is at the moment configured to, since when the OLT is activated, it will wait 1 minute, then we'll start authentication request for all the devices. We see that some of them already started. And 1 minute later, it will start sending DHCP request for all the devices. There is no data plane emulation in BBSIM, so it will won't do anything with the ping. But as the system come up, we can we'll see all these emulated subscriber getting an IP. So we still have 4 or 5 that needs to be approved, but the thing is good. While everything is happening, we can probably take a look at the logs we are collecting from the system. I think most of you are already familiar with this. This is what happened when I brought up the physical OLT. We got notification that the ONUs were activated. And then when I authenticated one of them, we can see that import packets went through the state machine. Then we got a request on SEDIS to get the CNS tag to configure the flows in the system. And then we have the full history of the DHCP state machine for that subscriber. If I go ahead and reload, we'll probably see information about BBSIM. Okay, we are getting all the logs from BBSIM. And if I filter them out, we should be able, yeah, we're starting getting DHCP information from the emulated OLT. So we can go back here and see that some of the BBSIM containers already got an IP, some are still in the process of getting one, but this is the work we have started doing to scale test the platform and let us emulate the scale that we need to provide.
How many users can you emulate on these?
So as now, I think we can arrive to 64. We are trying with 16 for now. The target is to emulate 16 OLT, 16.4 per OLT, and 64 devices per CORD.
Yeah, the tool itself has to scale first before we can scale test the system. So we're in the process of building this tool. So right now, its own scale is limited, but we have big plans for it going forward. So.
I would say that it has already been improved and helpful. Even with a small scale, because an emulator will let you go through the operation much faster than the real hardware, and you can emulate multiple events at the same time. So
yeah.
I'm presenting where as to emulate all of these, you can show our topology.
Oh yeah. So if you look at ONOS, I just looked at the ONOS also, and it looks so yeah. So what you see over here is the physical aggregation switch, which is on top, that connects to the external BNG, and then you have the physical OLT, which in this particular one we call it CHADS OLT. The physical OLT Now it looks like that is the OLT, but it's actually not. It's the representation of the pawn that Volta provides to the system, right? So it's the OLT plus ONU actually, right? So on one side that connects to the ACK switch, that's the NNI port. And on the other side that connects to the RG, that's the UNI port. So it's the switch representation of the pawn, right? So this device that you see over here with IP address 10.22.1.8, okay, that's actually the RG, which has received the IP address, okay? And in the same graph, what you're seeing is the emulated OLT, which is the BBSIM OLT. Actually, it's the BBSIM pawn again, right? With the 16 RGs that are connected to it, each of them having an IP address, right? What you don't see is a link between the BBSIM representation of the pawn to the ACK switch, because BBSIM is designed not to do the data plane, right? Right, it's just the control plane. It's just DHCP and AAA and other things happening from the ONU. So there's no actual physical link between BBSIM and the aggregation switch. Okay.
So again, one of the ports is that the NNI port, because I'm counting the 17 ports, right, of the BBSIM.
So if you look at it that way, one is the NNI port and 16 are the UNI port.
Okay.
And in the same way on the physical OLT, we see 6 because we have 5 ONUs connected to it. If we go look in the details, we'll see that some of them, no, they are all enabled, but they're not.
Yeah, I can explain the difference between, so in the physical OLT, we had actually shown 5 ONUs connected, but on this graph, you only see 1. That's because this is how ONOS learns about things that are attached to the network that it controls, right? So ONOS does not learn about attachments based on something physically attaching to it, only when it sends traffic like DHCP traffic. So I think that's what Matteo is doing right now.
Indicating another client on the
Right. So basically, you only have one RG complete or initiate the DHCP.
Exactly. So when that RG does go through DH client, that's when you'll see ONOS basically discovering that particular node right there as it pops up. It's ONOS has seen it. It's going through DHCP and whoops. Don't touch it. Okay. So I can show it. If you refresh, I see it on my screen. So right there. So as you can see, the second one has popped up and it has gotten this IP address. That's when. So there's still, more RGs over there, but it's doesn't see it yet because it hasn't gone through DHCP.
Right.
All the BBSIM RGs, they've all gone through that process, and that's why you see 16 of them. Okay. Any other questions? No, so we have a different tool for emulating user plane.
We didn't quite hear it.
The question was, is there any intention to emulate the data plane? And the answer is, we have a different emulator for the user plane.
If you want to do user and control plane, that's where we use PwnSim, which will do both. But PwnSim is a little heavier than what we do in BBSIM. And user and data plane, you can use SEBA in a box. SEBA in a box internally uses PwnSim, and so you'll get both, and you can do end-to-end testing with PwnSim. But BBSIM's purpose is completely different. It's meant to be light, and therefore there is no real need to do the data plane emulation because the data plane is essentially in hardware anyway. What we really want to test is what is the control plane interaction and how does that scale. So having BBSIM scale to tens of ONUs and tens of OLTs and thousands of ONUs, we want to keep it light by not doing the data plane.
Right. One of the takeaway doing the ONF Connect is I think Kata is going to write something and try to tell the difference between. I think a lot of people confused about PunSim versus BBSIM. So we're going to add that in the Volta Jira also.
Wonderful. So that brings us to the end of the demo. Any other quick questions?
Did you see? Do you see the? Of course, probably not yet. The resource. You know, when you add in so many ONTs, do you see any bottlenecks start showing up?
Yeah. So we spent the month of November basically fixing a bunch of issues, some with Volta, some with other parts of the system that were exposed by BBSIM. So even at this minimal scale of 1 OLT and 16 ONUs, it had exposed some issues with, CPU usage in Volta. It had shown problems with the DHCP process going through SADIS, and it had shown other CPU problems leading, lots of retries, things happening inside Volta. So a major part of the ONF team, SEBA team, as well as some folks from the community like Serkant, and the folks at the AT&T Foundry, we all worked together to fix a lot of these performance issues. So, so BBSIM has already proven useful, and I think I'm very sure that going forward it's going to be even more useful.
Something I just noticed about BBSIM as well is it seems like it's now able to use the same adapters that real hardware uses, OpenOLT adapter and Broadcom OpenOMCI adapter, which is great for real testing.
Which means we can start doing some heavy performance testing.
Yes.
Yeah, Shad actually worked really hard to move away from BBSIM using its own adapters to actually moving over to OpenOLT adapter and the OpenOMCI ONU adapter. So now what you will see in this SEBA release, which uses Volta version 1.6, is that Volta version 1.6 does not have any BBSIM's own adapters. That code has been removed. BBSIM is in Go.
Somebody needs to buy Shad a beer.
Yeah.
Shad, and then within the Go, you have the open flow.
Just speak up, otherwise they don't hear you. So the initial, the bulk of the work was done by Kieta for Go, yeah, so it's a completely new implementation.
But the open flow actually
there is no open flow because it doesn't do the data plane. So it gets, the flows are. The flows are pushed to BBSIM, but it ignores them.
So on push the open flow to Volta, and then the adapter in Volta talks gRPC with BBSIM in the same way that it talks gRPC with the OpenOLT enabled device.
Physical hardware.
Yeah. Open flow stops at Volta, and the devices get a proprietary whatever messaging is happening.
So it's basically spinning up a new ONU or whatever, it's spinning a new process for every ONU and WRG. Explain that. So,
Speak up and get closer to the mic.
I implement each ONU just instance, not process. So does it make sense?
Yeah. So every instance, then how do you get a number of RGs and all of that per instance, or how do you spin up those?
I see. So the RG is implemented as WPS applicant. So I use WPS applicant for running a AAA clients inside BBSIM. So for spinning out the RGs, that is just increasing the instances that exists inside BBSIM.
Right. So the number of ONU and PON cores are kept in memory in the same process. Each process is one OLT.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Is there a write-up on this BBC that you can maybe do, or some slides or something that we could share with the team?
Sorry?
Some slides or some write-ups about BBC.
Slides?
Yeah, he's going to do some documentation for BBSIM, right?
Right.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for interpretation.
Because we could use this for mobility stuff to emulating the RAN related stuff, similar approach.
Yes,
concept,
right. Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, we're at the top of the hour. So any quick questions, or we wish you?
Just one quick note. I sent out an email to the CORD TST. This is Larry. I kind of referred to it as co-releasing. There will be simultaneous. Just wanted to make it clear and let people ask questions if they have any. We're going to bump the CORD version number to 6.1, minor release. It will include the SEBA profile as one of potentially many, but today it's the only one. But independently, CORD 1.0 will be its own thing, accessible without paying too much attention to the rest of CORD, with the exception that we share a lot of documentation currently. And so that's technically the reason we needed to bump the CORD version number up so that we could get the SEBA documentation out of master. It'll be fixed. Just an explanation and give people a chance to ask questions if they had any.
And Saurabh, on the VOTA side, is that 1.6 or is it 1.6 something?
1.6.0.
1.6.0, okay.
It's published on Docker.
Sorry?
It's published on Docker Hub and the repository has been tagged, so anyone that needs to build it can just do it or download it from Docker Hub.
So this is Don. I did want to say that it's really amazing to me how far this has come in the last year. It's really looking polished.
Yeah, a lot of great work. This is fantastic. Yeah, a lot of hard work at the guys at ONF. But we were just saying that while we were muted, how this has really kind of come together, and all the focus you guys have put into this has been really great. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you too, and as well as folks in the community. We couldn't have done this without your help. So on that note, I think we've had a very successful 2018, and we look forward to even more success in the coming year. Yeah, that's right. It's the whole team effort, right? The Foundry, the QA, the development, the testing. Yeah, exactly. And we look forward to the certification brigade also picking up. There's a lot of interest in the certification brigade for SEBA-related certification. So, yeah, we have a lot to look forward to in the coming year.
Yep, I agree.
And so on that note, thank you very much for attending the last call of the year, and wish you all a happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Everybody relax and fresh.
Okay, thanks everyone. As a point of order, I believe our next call is going to be the second week of January. So the 8th or thereabouts. I'm not sure the exact date, but 7th. Okay.
No, second week of 8th.
Is the 8th. Sorry. Okay. Alrighty. So talk to you guys then. Thank you all.
Happy New Year. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.